Good evening. And I'm happy that I'm here with you all today evening. And it's also exciting to see the young friends speaking about entrepreneurship. So that makes my life more simpler, since all the youngsters itself are geared up to take the world in their stride, and that too keeping the environment in a much bigger way. In fact, my journey started in 1987 in Nagpur on Amravati Road. And that's one of the best opportunities which I had because I had a wonderful team. And this all came because of the concept of national natural resources management is what the concept in why we need satellites. That's how the ISRO started and looking in, and they established these regional centers which is having the digital image processing facilities. Because as you know, the images from space are digital, so if you want to get information out of it, that's the best tool per se. And we had a team of scientists who are specialized in natural resources and also in software development. And that time we had the state of computers in 1987 with 4 MB RAM and 456 MB storage space, but occupying almost the size of the dais. And now everything you have in miniaturized one, much, much bigger in your mobiles itself. So that you can imagine what is the tough times we had, and we had to innovate in every aspect to meet the requirements of the country. And that's very privileged resource which the country had in establishing 5 in the country, quite expensive at the time. So our job as a government servant, though a scientist of ISRO, our job is to serve people and ensure what comes out of it should be useful for many, especially for the needy people. And that's where the role comes as a scientist and a government servant, and take it forward and make it. And my friends, I can tell you, in 1988, we had the first satellite. And before the first satellite, we had to be there in 87 here. And that's the vision of ISRO, always to think ahead and keep the infrastructure in place and the people in place so they can deliver the goods, what is needed for the nation. That's how it works, the system. That's where the seniors who are there, our visionaries. And then that's where we started working on, and their land use, land cover mapping for agroclimatic zone. The methodology started from Nagpur. Please understand, it's a small center with 11 scientists, equivalent, allied people who are there, associate support people. And nationally, we were able to compete in every application you name. It can be the land degradation, it can be the disaster management support, or crop acreage and production estimation. Everywhere we had a role to play. And that has become the guidelines documents, including for environment impact assessment, etc., etc. And we also worked very closely with academia, with industry, NGOs, self-help groups, time to time, to understand their needs and come out with certain resources. This is where, when you see a satellite image, you can see everything in it. People can look like my palm, someone looks at the palm, it's like look at that hand. People, everyone looks at different things. You can look at what is the rock type. What is the groundwater potential? What is the surface water? What is the land use, land cover, how people are using it? Where is the drainage? Where is the transport network? You can see anything. So every expert can interpret in any way you want to do. That's where innovation starts. If it is so, the question came, if everything is embedded in it, why don't you look at integratedly all the natural resources which you can derive out of it and see whether the parcel of land, is it being used optimally? If not, what is the alternate uses you can make? And that's where the difference which has come. This is what Professor Y.V.N. started in early 90s. And that's where we all worked together digitally to look at what type of errors we may come, what is the error budget, and what is the quantitative we can do. And that's where the watershed programs, especially we've taken Chandrapur district as a prototype and Umagani watershed, and one of the best plans which has been made, and the state has taken it for implementation. But then, however, in an expert committee which is chaired by a very senior secretary, he complimented, excellent. But my friends, space people be in space, we know what to do on ground. Very dangerous statement. This is where we had to think, again a great opportunity for us to think, where is this gap? Because that area we have gone many a time for the field. And I had taken my software colleagues also in the peak of the summer to see how the terrain is and what are the people for whom we are planning. And they understand the temperatures of 45 plus, single digit humidity, and how to protect ourselves to go to the field. And they know to whom they are doing. That means they kept their heart in it when we're doing that planning process. That's where the innovation comes in handling all this data, control the error, give you the best plans. But still there's a gap. What is that gap? This is where we found all the developmental programs in the country are beneficiary oriented. Whether they're small and marginal farmers, are they large farmers, are there any landless laborer who are depend upon it? You see about Manrega, Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So this is how it works. That means we had to convert, translate all this to those schemes. But the images, what we have, doesn't have the ownership details. Who owns that land? Is it a government land, private land? We don't have the details. So how to capture that is all on the maps called cadaster maps. And unfortunately, these doesn't have projection. That means they are not projected in terms of the geographic coordinates. So you cannot superimpose into the satellite images or onto any of the Survey of India maps which are existing. So you cannot translate the information back and forth. So this is where we had to really think and get out a unique methodology. And you're all aware in 1995, we had one of the best satellites in the world for civilian use. That kind of a resolution, nowhere it is there in the world, which has been given to civilian use, 5.8 meters, called IRS-1C, which is a 3-tier imaging, innovatively done by the ISRO scientists. And that came to our rescue to take the control points like the corners of the field bunds, etc., that, and transform all these cadaster maps with geographic coordinates and which can superimpose on anything. That's where the citizens got the right to tell which land he belongs. Please understand, when you had to do anything, the land belongs to the states. You have to infuse them. That's where we've gone to the Maharashtra government, shown these applications to get revenue out of the taxes from the water cess which they collect, and that way infused them, and they invested in taking for entire Maharashtra, and we have the Maharashtra Remote Sensing Center which took it up. Whereas for Chhattisgarh, a new state which has been formed, they want to look at where can be the new capital. What are the areas of industry development? Where are the areas, potential areas for horticulture? They are thinking lines because the new state has to identify certain pockets and show it for development, and that is also the same area which we have to look in. So these are the two states. If you see how many villages? Almost like 70,000 villages. How many maps per this thing on an A0 size which has to be digitized? So this is where in Maharashtra, that time the chief secretary asked me a question. Krishnamurthy, you all gave a proposal for 24 months. Now it is already 18 months gone. You have only 6 months. How do you do it? Sir, don't worry. We have the industry to back up. And here we had industry already on geospatial that has become a front runner, and all the industry colleagues got an opportunity. And then you will be surprised. It's not the engineers who did this job. Mostly even the diploma holders, ITI passed, because they convert them digitally and then transform into with geographic coordinates, put it on the overlays, and also the error budgets, quality is very essential when you look at ISRO. And then the Talatis doesn't want to happen because you're taking the maps, making digitally and making it open. Who will like to happen? Because that's a revenue. And that's a very tough time. And my own colleagues who are peers didn't believe this will happen because they felt you have hilly terrain, you have undulating terrain, what will happen in Western Ghats, people question you. It's a very tough time, but we looked as it's an opportunity to make a base which will be available for the people of the country to have a good governance system which is very transparent. If that is not there, there's no transparency in what we speak. Who is the beneficiary? When a disaster happens, where there's a calamity, whose land and agriculture produce is lost and who is getting the benefits? Today it is everything transparent. That's what the efforts which has been made, and each industry colleague also innovated the way. We have made a brace standard operating procedure, but when you operate on the field, there are so many other trials and errors which they had to do, and they have come up to this stage. That is the uniqueness of Nagpur. And my friends, these industries are not just in India. Today they are operating globally. They have their offices globally, and they are doing a very good business. But the next step business, what comes to them, or to audience we are looking at here. So like this, the opportunity from here, we also gone for the distress. You know that there are distress villages. All places this been extended, and all the self-help groups got trained and they started using it. And the NABARD started funding it. And also the people's participation, which is very important, which is very simple because they can understand the image They can understand their land, they can understand where is the drainage and what to do. So it has become more and more simpler the day in and out because the data started improving on it. But then the most other important, which you can look at, the satellites also have started improving. We have Cartosat series of satellites, ResourceSat set of satellites. Then we have the OceanSat. Other day we have launched the OceanSat 3 satellite, which is important for the fisherman, where you can tell the fish available in the sea. And that's how government every year is getting almost like 34,000 crores. You are making savings because the exact location is being told and the fishermen go exactly, the savings of the fuel. But my friends, there are three important parameters. One is the ocean color, sea surface temperature, and the wind vectors, which comes from a scatterometer. These three parameters you put through, you can do anything, anywhere in terms of telling about it. And these three are on OceanSat 3, which is India has done. And these are global satellites. This is everywhere in the globe. And what has India given to you? A highest diversity and heterogeneity. You have the East Coast, West Coast, Eastern Ghats, Western Ghats, continental shelves on the either region, or the islands on either region, or the rain-fed agriculture, what we do have. And also on the hills, you have the cold deserts, sandy deserts, and you have northeastern hills, which are different in terms of the relief length ratio. Entire physiography of what is there in the world is packed and given to you. That's your privilege. That's the country's privilege. You test anything here in this heterogeneity, and world over, many homogeneity is there. It says all your algorithms, digital algorithms or the methods what you're talking about, AI, machine learning, everything will be perfectly matching, and you are the best entrepreneur anywhere you venture. And as I told you, these are all the global satellites has been thought about, and there's a continuity of these satellites, not only in optical, but also in microwave, which are all-weather capabilities which can come through. I had an opportunity to be in Dehradun at a training institute. So we made 3-4, especially e-learning methods. So even when you're in kitchen, a 10th standard passes student, even you're in kitchen, or you're walking, you're talking, you have a network, you can keep learning about remote sensing, GIS, GNSS, or the applications. That has been made possible, and it is available today for everyone. Or use simple mobile as a tool because it has both navigation, communication, observation where you can film and you can put data. All 4 parameters are there. We did many applications on top of it when we had the Kedarnath floods, or making a 3D out of it. You can do all the collinearity equations have been solved by students in one summer internship. That is a credit. Even in Nagpur, we had many students who developed software which is nationally being used. So it's only the vision you have, procedure you make it, and let loose the students, give them the opportunity. They'll come back, but you integrate, see the quality, how it will work. That's the job of the seniors which will put through. Then as a scientific secretary, I got an opportunity to conduct a program which the Prime Minister wanted for all the administrators to know about the space technology, how it can be used in their day-to-day applications. So 86 ministries are there, all have been brought through, and Prime Minister himself addressed all the secretaries, and every secretary noted the applications, what to do. Then we had a follow-up with all the chief secretaries. So everywhere today is bubbling with opportunities for you. Then we have the information should be made available to all the people. That's where we have the geospatial, National Geospatial Policy 22. It's the industry-oriented approach. Everyone should have a free access to the data and for the application which you need to do. And also we have now the Indian space policy. Even you can think about launching rockets, you can make satellites, you can do everything whichever you want. And that is where the greatest opportunities which you have. But now, after my superannuation, I have been given an opportunity to be in Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology. That's an academic institution deemed to be university. My friends, we made satellites now, small satellites. ISRO makes big satellites. We make small satellites. But these satellites doesn't have any redundancy, because in space you cannot do anything. So you need redundancy. If something goes wrong, the other one has to work. But here we don't have scope because it's miniaturized, either the payloads or the satellites per se. So the testing of the commercially available components, or called industry-grade components, are made to qualify for space. That's what the innovation my young friends, students and all do. And do you know the last launch what we made? We got in 2 payloads, each one taken only 2.5 months from design to fabrication to launch. That's what our youngsters' potential is there in the country. And this is where only we have to do, create an infrastructure for them and give them mentoring, and they will scale any heights. And this can be anywhere in the world because we have international collaborations pouring in. After seeing this, the first Inspire Sat when we launched, it is not that we are looking at the ground station, what we established, 10,000 people across the globe, the amateurs are monitoring what is the data, how it is coming, how we can use. And these are all mostly for the space weather, because talking about the solar flares which is going to happen and affect. The last one, what we call as Aries 2 in the weather, captured the epochs of the plasma distribution and its effect. We are able to do with a small payload of less than 1 kg. These are all because PSLV gives an opportunity called POEM, where we can keep all the payloads on top of it, and it will take care of the orbiting and other mechanisms. This is another opportunity available for the children, the students. So you don't have to make the full satellite. You can make a payload, test it, and then invest into making a satellite or a group of satellites, or what we call as a cluster of satellites for whichever application you need to do. While doing all this, what I looked at is the opportunities, many, but when you get an opportunity, you need to keenly observe around into what is there in front of you. Even the image, what I was talking, has a multiple facets you have to observe. When we intently do, we should have the will to understand. That means even a youngster tells that, like what my young friends have told, we have to will to understand what they're speaking. And we should well understand what we want to do. If these two things are not there, then the next step is, how do we understand to network with people? Whatever we do, we have to speak. If you don't speak, no one will ask you questions. And take the critics, whatever is there comes out of it, and nurture your ideas. The nurturing is very important, because it just doesn't happen just like that. And then when you nurture and you're clear, you have to negotiate. Because in a democratic society, we have to negotiate with people to things to happen. It doesn't happen just like that. You have to keep negotiating at every level. When you do this, what happens is you will be losing the spirit. So the urge in your belly should still be there. And people around you should create that urge. That means either you dive or someone has to push you. And in ISRO, it does it. It pushes us many a time where we don't know the end, where is the light at the end of the tunnel. We are not aware, but we are pushed, but we swam back and came. That's where I'm standing here in front of you. Many opportunities galore like that. But if all this happens, you have to think about your purpose of life. The purpose of life keeps changing. Initially, we may think something in our childhood. Then subsequently something comes in, and then the purpose of life. If that changes, the way you perceive things, your perception changes about you and what you're doing for others. And the perception changes, then you have your passion for what you are involved in it. I make this opportunity, and why I'm keeping on passion, if you don't have this, things will not happen the way you want. If I tell, bigger the opportunity, multiple challenges, if I look at a challenge, I see a problem. But I see an opportunity, I see a solution. That's where always look as an opportunity, whichever comes. That's where all the way I came here as an opportunity. And that too in Nagpur, where I started maximum 21 years of my career, which I spent here with my family. So this is one of the best opportunities I got. And please take the first alphabets of what I told. Opportunities, will to understand, then networking, urge, and passion, and your perseverance for your goal. So that is own up. You have to own up for whatever you are and your deeds, my friends. If you don't own up, then who else? So this is where your life is, and that is where it is possible. It was possible for me. I never found any difficulties because I looked everything as an opportunity. And more importantly, because if you have to go in the stride, be an entrepreneur, you have to do some sacrifices, because at times, and your family has to support you, and you have to negotiate with them. Because my children never had the birthday on their birth dates. Whenever we are there together, we celebrated. Never I could go to the teachers' meet. We had to do separately whenever I could go there. But they were with me. The family is with me. The support for the family, the better half support, the family support is most important when you had to really venture into areas where you don't know and show result. And thank you once again for this opportunity, and good luck to all of you.